Strayed Lights was an interesting, albeit short, game. I got through the entire game in one sitting of 4 hours. You can check out the live stream if you'd like to see some gameplay, but first, stick around. I'm going to talk to you about some game mechanics and what you should expect if you end up playing for yourself. The story was hard to follow because nobody in the game talks, and there are no words to read other than tutorial stuff. You start out as a small light. You grow up fast and get attacked by the darkness within yourself, given form. After the fight, the darkness steals your light and shatters it, sending it through multiple portals. From there, you have to travel through various lands to put yourself back together again, I think. I would say there isn't a whole lot in the game to worry about. The entire game is fighting your way through enemies, but the combat isn't aggressively graphic. There are some fights that may cause you to curse out of frustration. Other than that, it's safe. There is a scene where a fox deer-like critter gets killed. That was kind of brutal, but there's only one scene like that. Strayed Lights was a simple game to figure out. Combat consisted of only a few different buttons, the focus being parries, blocking right before an attack hits you. For every successful parry, an energy bar fills at the bottom. When that is filled, you will unleash your built-up energy, ending the fight. All fights will last until the bar is filled. If there are multiple enemies, it won't be filled until they all run out of health. Combat isn't as simple as just attacking and parrying when necessary. On top of that, enemies will change colors before an attack, either red or blue. Depending on the color, you need to adjust your color before parrying for maximum effectiveness. You can still deflect all the damage if it's a perfect parry, but you won't build up any energy unless you're the right color. There are a finite amount of enemies in the game. For every one defeated, you get 1 skill experience. There are a total of 6 skills to get, with the cost going up for every one purchased. The skills help with combat by increasing things like health or ability points. If you can beat every enemy, you can max out all the skills, making for a well-rounded character. There are 3 different abilities that can be used in combat, all of which can be upgraded 2 times. One that allows you to parry any color and still gain energy. One that stuns the surrounding enemies temporarily, including bosses. And one that's just a big attack. I found the stun ability to be the most useful. I tried all of them and just wasn't very impressed with any but the stun. Using an ability requires a charge, and the only way to refill the charges was to defeat enemies. If I used all the charges on one enemy, I would only refill 1 charge after beating them. Beating bosses will also fill all the charges, and reward you with 1 ability point to use. Hidden throughout the entire game were clusters of light rings to grab. After so many were found, it would increase total energy gain on parry and attacks, making fights a little bit faster. Finding them involved exploring every nook and cranny in the game. Quite a few would be hidden behind an enemy or two. They were basically useful collectibles, adding a little bit more to the game. There is a sort of backstory to find in the main areas of the game. There were 6 pink eggs tucked away high and low throughout the main gathering areas. There was a small place to turn in the eggs that would reward some light rings and show a picture about the past, I think. Adding some backstory or explanation on what's going on. The game is very vague. Most of the story is up to interpretation. There were branching paths from the main areas taking me through different environments, with the goal of soothing a troubled sibling. The only reason I know they were siblings was the name of the achievements I got after beating them. Siblings were the boss fights in the areas. Big, troubled creatures. It was my job to help them get over some big emotional issues like fear or anger. The only way to help them was to beat them up in a big fight, naturally. The game as a whole was short and sweet. I completed the whole thing in one sitting. Sadly, my recording was corrupted, so I had to play through the entire game again. Both times taking about 4 hours. Anyway, let's get the ratings done so we can play Strayed Lights on a shelf. Visually, the game was very pretty. There were a lot of different environments that were well done and captivating. I feel it's deserving of a 4. The story was pretty much non-existent. Every step of the way, I could kind of tell what was going on, maybe. It feels like it's all up to interpretation. Ultimately, I want to give it a 1. The gameplay was smooth and very simple. Nothing new brought to the table, but nothing was screwed up either. I'm giving it a 3. I wouldn't say this game has a high replayability. There is the option to take on the bosses on higher difficulties, and I believe the developers are working on other Gauntlet-like things for the future, but there wasn't anything that I'd really care to get back to. I'm giving it a 2. There was a decent amount of fun to be had. Some fights were more challenging than others, but the majority of the game was pretty easy to handle. I feel like this is a middle-of-the-road sort of thing, so I'm going with a 3. Giving Strayed Lights an average of 2.6, placing it at the start of the mid-shelf. I don't regret my purchase. I just wonder if there was enough offered for the asking price. If I hadn't got a messed up recording, I would have only put 4 hours into the game. I don't plan on coming back to it. Alright, now that we're done with that, it's time to move on to the next one. I will see you there. Bye!